Nightmare Reaper is like trail mix. A trail mix where you only like 1/3 of the ingredients, but my god is that 1/3 really good. Going into this, I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it, mainly being that this is my first roguelite. I'm not a big fan of RNG dictating my gameplay. Of course, unless we're talking about D&D. That's like the one exception. However, I tried it on a whim and was pleasantly surprised on how much I dug this style of game. Hopping into levels, making do with what I have, going until I either die or complete the level, doing it all again. It's all good-natured fun. There's no levels to memorize, which meant I spent less time exploring and more time enjoying combat. Except, of course, those moments when I got lost because I cleared out every enemy in the stage but didn't know where to go. Which, I mean, to be fair, is just kind of a downfall of the genre, I assume. Remember, this is my first roguelite. But it was kind of lame that later levels asked me to go through all these extra steps just to get through them. Whether that be bringing a fuse or a stone tablet to some location that sometimes is in the room next to me, sometimes is on the other end of the map. Not to mention, sometimes you have to activate these fuses or stone tablets with items that could sometimes be in the room next to you, or other times be on the other end of the map. It's not awful, I just don't think it serves the gameplay in a good way, which is why I'm bringing it up. And it's probably why I found Arena so much fun. It's just straight to the point combat. Sometimes I just want to murder shit, okay? Why is that so wrong? Huh? Why is murder wrong? What's wrong with me wanting to cause a bloodbath? Huh? I'm not sure, but if you have an answer, can you please let me know so I can get my psychiatrist off my back? Beyond that, Nightmare Reaper is a boomer shooter with keycard hunting. As for combat, enemies are what you expect, ranging from simple fodder, to annoying, to genuinely threatening. Sometimes enemies are buffed, which just means that, they're a regular enemy, but they're big now, and take twice the amount of damage. Guns feel good to shoot, the feedback is appropriate, and the guns themselves are fun to play with. It's essentially Borderlands in terms of how things work. You get gun archetypes that range from standard weapons to ridiculous shit. And when I say ridiculous shit, I'm talking about magic books, a home-seeking eyeball, a skull that summons skeletons to fight for you. Look at me, Ma, I can play God! After each level, you choose a weapon to keep, and the rest get converted into cash, which is a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, on one hand, if you don't pick a good weapon, or realize that explosives or certain magic weapons honestly dominate this entire game, then you can easily get stuck on a hard level with shit weapons, replaying the thing over and over and over again, relying on the RNG gods to not forsaken you. On the other hand, you may get a really good weapon early on and not switch to anything else. Like how in my second playthrough I got a fire book where its alt fire was a giant fireball that broke into smaller fireballs which broke into even smaller fireballs. I essentially just kept this weapon the entire game once I had it. I do wish you could keep weapons even if you die. Maybe balance that option out with a fee the player has to pay. That way, if you find a good weapon that you think could get you through the game, you don't have to lose it so long as you pay the toll. And paying the toll means that you can't really upgrade your abilities, or that you have to grind more to upgrade your abilities, which I think is a good trade-off. Of course you got power-ups, because what self-respecting boomer shooter doesn't have power-ups? Here you got Nightmare Mode, Slow-Mo, Mirror Mode, and Haste. Haste I can take or leave, the rest are pretty fun, especially slow down time in combination with that fire book I was telling you about. I mean, you can literally just spam the room with fireballs, and then once slow-mo is done, watch the carnage unfold. Then there's the random events, which add more to the whole spontaneous nature of this game. These can range from objects that show up and attack you, to the level filling up with barrels, to an Easter egg involving rabbits. I'm not explaining more, fill in the blanks. Lastly, there are the bosses, which are honestly meh. They don't make the game better or worse. I think the main thing is that there's hardly anything about them gameplay-wise that sets them apart. Only boss that felt unique was the last one. And what makes them different is all the power-ups in the level that can be picked up by both you and them, forcing you to control the map and get to them before they do. It was a genuinely good fight. But the rest of the fights, you can literally just circle straight for the enemy and spam your most powerful weapon and it will get you through. If all the game was this, sure, it would be repetitive. But I wouldn't have a problem with that. The variety in guns, enemies, and mechanics throughout the campaign are more than enough to carry the game. But as I said earlier, that's only 1/3 of this trail mix, and the other 2/3 being the hospital and the minigames, one of which adds very little to the game, and the other gets in the way of the fun. On the hospital end of things, you get these atmospheric horror sections that give backdrop to the events in the game. There's a bit of environmental storytelling here with the hospital as it gradually opens up. But most of the story itself is told through notes. The notes are told through the perspective of this undisclosed doctor, who tells of a girl who lived a life of severe trauma and was put in his care under his request, believing that he could save this girl. There's a heavy implication that you are that girl, but maybe there's another. It's left open. The notes are okay, they give enough context to the story, though, and trigger warning, but the part where it's explained that the girl, who may or may not be you, was prostituted by their mother as a teenager, kinda tasteless and feels like something an incel would write. Now listen, I don't want to sit here and clutch my pearls, no one's here to listen to me do that, but subjects such as sex trafficking are not concepts you throw into your backstory lightly, especially in an over-the-top pixel shooter. It's just a little, just a tad little bit in poor taste. Not to mention, without it, you still get this pretty dark backstory about a girl growing up in an abusive environment. I don't know, it doesn't fit the tone of the gameplay, which is over the top and jovial. In general, the tone and atmosphere of these hospital segments clash with the gameplay, which is a shame because on their own, the atmosphere is pretty good. Lighting is used to great effect, light jump scares are used sparingly enough for them to work, and it has my favorite soundtrack playing, ambient screaming. But none of it really lands because there isn't a threat backing it up. It's disconnected from the gameplay. And what really hurts the hospital segment is that most of the time, nothing new happens. But there's always that what if. So it just becomes a routine you do between gunfights as opposed to any tangible place you get sucked into like a proper survival horror game like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. And I get it, it's not trying to be those games, but like, the Spencer Mansion isn't just this place you come back to in between gameplay to check some things and then go back into the wild. It's an unfolding, ever-expanding location you become familiar with as you unlock more of it and find out about its history. But now I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to talk more about the minigames, which... Okay, so listen, minigames in most contexts wouldn't bother me regardless of quality. I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan, dammit. We know our fair share of crappy and unnecessary minigames, which range from, this is playable, to, someone please end me so that I can escape this existential nightmare. But that's also Kingdom Hearts in general, and I should really make a video on those games one day. Point is, what was my point? Oh yeah, these minigames. They're awful. And the reason I say that is because of how they're tied to the progression system. As you complete levels, you earn gold and other treasures that you spend on upgrades. So far so good, you know, pretty standard. It even has an 8-bit game aesthetic that is explained in the doctor notes. Upgrades are, from my experience, integral to progression as guns and raw skill can only take you so far. You know, of course, unless you're a wicked skilled player or a madman, aka speedrunners. So then, who, or what, compelled the devs to make you have to play these minigames to get the upgrades? every single one has a short minigame attached to it that is mandatory for unlocking it. And I do mean every upgrade, from game-changing abilities to simple increases in your health and ammo capacity. If you fail, you can try again, as it only takes your gold when you beat the minigame. But that's besides the point, because my issue isn't the loss of funds, it's the interruption to gameplay and the convolution of it all. At first, it's not a huge deal because the minigames are super easy, but then they get somewhat challenging and it's like, I didn't sign up for this. I wanted to blast fools, not play Mario or R-Type or Pokemon, especially Pokemon. To make it worse, each game has its own currency. For Mario, it's coins, which are the most common. For Pokemon, it's Topaz, which is rarer. And R-Type takes a currency that you can only earn through the arena. And as much as I understand and appreciate the effort here to do something different, it just doesn't land, and what should have been at best a distraction overstates its welcome. I think a better use for them would have been as end of level stages. Make them distribute more points, and if you die, that's it. Worst case scenario, the player doesn't want to do them, dies on purpose, and moves forward, instead of sitting there mindlessly plowing through all of them just to get the upgrades to be able to play the part of the game they actually want to be playing. Or disperse them throughout the hospital and make them subtly tell bits of the lore that maybe the notes couldn't. Maybe use them as a way to convey the character's thoughts and emotions in a way the player can directly interact with. Whatever else you could have done would have been a million times better than tying them to the progression system. I was going to complain about the length of this game as well, as I first wrote this review a long time ago. Back then I quit just before the end because it was going on a little too long for my interest. But since then, they've updated the game, adding in a few new features. One of them being Redux Mode, which shortens the game's length. And honestly, I think it's a vast improvement on that front. What felt like a game that went on a little too long for its own good is now a game I can pick up, beat in a few days, put down, all while still feeling like I got a satisfying experience out of it. Better lending to that pick up and play nature. And that's how I would ultimately describe this game. It's a great pick up and play game. The kind that's perfect for when you have about 30 minutes to kill. And now that Redux Mode exists, I would definitely play this game again someday. Sure, Redux doesn't solve the other two issues I have, but it makes them more bearable. Anyways, I'm gonna go play in traffic now. I'll see you all later. Bye!